Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is episode 2 where we're going to be talking about some leaks that I've had to fix on the boat. We'll also be talking about how I've started refinishing some of the cockpit flooring with a wood finish product from Total Boat. And also I have winterized and done a little bit of work to the rear lazarette storage area underneath the cockpit. So thanks for tuning in. Let's do it. So I've noticed some leaks on the boat in the area where the rail actually is bolted to the top side. So right where the top side meets the deck, where the rail is actually bolted along either side of the boat. On the interior of the boat, I've noticed some leaks in that area. And one of those areas, it looked like it was leaking fairly well when it rained. So by fairly well, every time it rained, I'd get a little stream of water coming in the boat. Not a terrible amount, but enough that I needed to do something with that. And also my concern was over the winter, if water got in there, especially if water got in the balsa core between the two fiberglass sides, that it, in theory, could freeze and push that area open. So without getting into grinding and trying to really work the area down and you know, re-glass it at this time of the year, it's cold currently where I am, I decided to try some 3M 5200. I'd done some research on Marine Adhesives. This is one of the ones that got a lot of really good recommendations. So this is the first time I used it. Basically, I took the bolt out in the area where I was finding some leaks. I reseated the bolt. I tried to drill the area out a little bit to make sure if there was any, you know, rotted core material in there that I could get a little bit of it out. That way the adhesive was adhering to fresh material, not just old rotty material. But basically I coated the bolt with the 3M product, and then I put the bolt back in and made sure I just lathered up the other side of it with this 3M 5200. So far, it seems like it's done well. I haven't seen any leaks in that area. I also put some on the outside of the rail, right where the bolt attaches. So, you know, this stuff finishes kind of like a, almost like a rubbery consistency. You can push on it a little bit. It's not hard, it's not plasticky. It's a little bit messy to work with. I ended up getting a lot of this product on the pair of pliers I was using, so I haven't perfected that yet. Maybe I went a little overboard with the amount of product that I used, but so far it has proven as a really good quick fix for any leaks that you may have. So in the floor of the cockpit, there are two pieces of wood that I believe are teak. If they're not teak, they've held up very well over the years, sitting in water in the cockpit floorboard at times. Now they're gray, they're weathered, so I decided to try to refinish these pieces of wood. And I went with a Total Boat product. So far, this is the first Total Boat product that I've used, but from everything I have learned and researched about different types of marine finishes, I really like Total Boat as a company so far. And full disclosure, they are not sponsoring this video in any way. This is just the first time I've used one of their products, and so far I've been impressed. So I used Total Boat Marine Wood Finish. As you can see here, this product comes in several different sizes, and it also comes in several different colors. So I went with the natural teak, and I really like that so far. You also can get it in satin or gloss, and then you can get these in a quart or 2 quart sizes. But as you can see here, a quart is only $35.99. So yes, that's a little pricey compared to some other paints. You know, if you get, say like a Behr premium paint from Home Depot, you can get a gallon of that for roughly $30, $35. But so far this product has been worth the money. So the instructions on this product were to sand down the wood using 220 grit sandpaper, a coarser grit if you needed it, to work out any imperfections, but then the final sanding should be a light sanding with 220 grit sandpaper. After that, wipe it down with some acetone, which I did, get the surface ready to paint, let that dry, and then it recommends about 3 coats. So I did roughly 3 coats on this flooring, on this wood, and so far I think it has turned out very well. The most difficult part for me was actually getting in between all these little holes in the wood. And one of the things that I found that worked really well was actually one of my daughter's little paint set brushes, these cheap little brushes. They worked great for getting in those small areas. Now I would use it and then get a coat on and just throw it away. This stuff is not water-based, so there's no, unless you have a really nice brush and you want to use that and then use some type of thinner afterwards to clean the brush. I recommend just a small brush like we talked about for the middle area if you have some small areas you need to paint, and then use some type of foam brush, cheap foam brush to do the rest of it. That worked very well for me. After I was done with each coating with the foam brush, I just would throw it away. Those are cheap brushes. So it turned out very well. I've been very happy with the finish so far. We'll see how it does after it's actually been put back in the boat and it's had some wear and tear on it. So this is looking down at the panels, comparing them side by side in the bottom of the cockpit. Of course, the gray one unfinished, and this one right here has been completely refinished. I am very impressed with the color and the shine. Again, kind of a closer up comparison as we look down on the two of them. Sorry about the shaky camera here. But very impressed with the color, the shine, and the glossiness of this panel that's been refinished. So when I bought the boat, there were a lot of items stored in the area underneath the cockpit. Maybe the term lazarette would be the correct term for that area, but there were a lot of items stored underneath there. And what was happening was all those items, because of the sloping of the hull, were sliding up against the bilge pump. And that made me have some concerns that if I really needed the bilge pump with all that storage pushing against it, would the bilge pump be able to, get water out of the boat effectively? So what I did is I actually built a small PVC barrier around the bilge pump. Why did I choose PVC pipe? It's cheap, it's easy to work with. I had a few other ideas, but this is what I went with. So basically back in the cockpit of the boat, underneath the cockpit, the hull itself, where it meets the water line, there's a little bit of water in here. If you can see that, you're looking down at my bilge pump, drain hose coming down, and then the bilge pump is sitting down there in the bottom. So the issue with this boat is it gets a little bit of water in the hull here. There's a nice bulkhead. Nice bulkhead right here that separates this area underneath the cockpit from the cabin. So because of some of these wind scoops right here, wind scoops, those are open to the air. They circulate air underneath the cockpit. So I do get a little bit of water down here in the hull. So when I bought the boat and I was cleaning it out, there was all kinds of junk in here that was sitting right next to that bilge pump. So what I decided to do was build basically a PVC pipe protector around the bilge pump. So now I can set buckets and stuff down here and they won't hit the pump. And then I made a little platform to sit stuff on. So for example, I can sit a bucket on there or up against here. It's not sitting on the bilge. Stuff hopefully won't slide down and hit the bilge. And then I've got a decent little storage area, or even if that bucket's sitting over there, it's not gonna get next to the bilge pump. So as long as I don't put a bunch of dirty rags and stuff in here, I think this will work out well. One of the tools I used to do this was just a PVC pipe cutter. This thing worked great. It's the first time I've actually used a PVC cutter instead of using a hacksaw or some type of saw to cut PVC pipe. Worked great. Cheap tool, but worked excellently, so I highly recommend that. So lastly, let's talk about winterizing a boat. Now, I had never had to winterize a boat or an RV before. And on this boat, I do have a clean water tank or a potable water tank. So I wanted to make sure that I had winterized the boat effectively before we got sub 30-degree temperatures at night. So what I found is there are two types of antifreeze. Of course, there's the type you put in your vehicle that is toxic. And then there's marine grade antifreeze that is potable and is non-toxic. Actually a lot better for the environment. So the type I bought was like $2.95 at Walmart, cheap stuff, which is all I really need for the boat at this point. But this is RV and marine antifreeze. If you look at the label on this, it says for potable water systems. It's supposed to give burst protection down to -50. So it may congeal, it may freeze a little bit, but it's supposed to keep the pipe from actually bursting down to -50 degrees. And you can buy different rated antifreeze products depending on your location. So all I did when I was winterizing the boat is I started by trying to get all of the water out of the clean water tank or the holding tank. So I pumped all the water out. I have 2 pump sinks in this boat, one in the galley and one in the head. I pumped all the clean water out, and then I added about 2 gallons of this pink antifreeze to the holding tank, and I just waited until I could pump that through the system until I was seeing pink come out of the spigot, as you can see here, and that worked very well. So that ensured that I had enough antifreeze in the system to have pumped it through all of the hoses coming to these sinks. Now, the other thing I did that might be a little comical is this boat always keeps some water in the area underneath the cockpit, the lazarette area in the hull underneath the cockpit. There's always a little bit of water in that area. So knowing this, I was concerned, of course, about this water freezing over the winter and damaging something in that area of the boat. Well, I thought about shop vacuuming some of the water out, but then I thought, wait a minute, why don't I just get as much of the water out by running the bilge, and then I'll add some of this antifreeze to the area underneath the cockpit. So that's exactly what I did. I poured about 1 gallon of this antifreeze actually into the lazarette storage area underneath the cockpit. And then I ran the bilge. So I turned the bilge on, I watched some pink flow out of the back of the boat. And therefore, hopefully I don't have to worry about that water freezing in the hull of the boat. And also I've ran this product through my aft bilge pump so that any hoses or anything that had water in them from that bilge pump now have at least some antifreeze in the system to keep those from freezing. So hopefully I've done a good job of winterizing the boat. We'll see how it goes this winter. I do plan to pull the boat out of the water here in the next month or so, and we're probably going to have temperatures at night of 20 to 30 degrees typically in my area. So we'll see how some of those antifreeze products work. My biggest concern moving forward is I do have a few other areas of the boat that are weeping a little bit of water, mainly through the bolts that come in through the hull into the cabin that secure the rail. So that is one of the biggest areas that I am worried about leaks, and probably going to be one of my next big projects. Hey, thanks again for checking out this video. If you haven't already, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. On the next episode, I will likely be pulling the boat out of the water onto the hard for the winter. That should be very fun, very interesting, and I'm a little apprehensive about that because I don't think this boat has been pulled out of the water in a couple years, at least 2 or 3 years. So it's going to need bottom paint over the winter. I'm going to be documenting all that. When I do pull it out of the water, I'm also going to show you how the centerboard works by winching it up and letting it down. We'll get some good footage of that. And who knows how this hull is going to look. So we'll discover that together. Hey, thanks again for tuning in. Talk to you soon.